talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industries. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Dean Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
Hello. I'm here this evening on Bank Holiday Monday, 8 o'clock. An unusual time for us to stream, but we stream when we must. With my co-host, the Inside Man. Have you had a good bank holiday?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, just watching some of the VE Day commemorations, which was rather nice.
That was what I planned to do today. Instead, I got to spend 5 hours in accident and emergency. Hugely entertaining, especially as I got there at 1 o'clock, and apparently my name was called to see the doctor at 20 past 1. But because I was sitting on the floor by the door, because there were no seats anywhere, there was over 100 people waiting there. And I told the triage nurse, I'm sitting on the floor by the door, so they need to shout loudly. I didn't hear my name called, and I was still there at 5:45.
Oh, dear.
I can't believe that. Oh, my God. Anyway, what an entertaining Sunday. So I feel very refreshed and prepared for the interview with the young, wonderful young actor that we're about to chat to today. Inside Man, have you seen on stage before Dream of a Ridiculous Man, a short story by Gieski?
I have not.
Well, it chronicles the experiences of a man who decides that there's nothing of any value in the world. Sounds like your autobiography, actually. Who slips into nihilism with terrible anguish, is determined to commit suicide. However, after a chance encounter with a young girl, one of those would be good. He begins an inner journey and reinstills a love for his fellow man. So, the actor that we're bringing in today, Tom Larkin, very, very talented young man. I've seen some of his stuff. Very gifted man. It's taking on this role. It's kind of a chalice of a role, and it's a lot for an actor to take on. We're going to be talking to him about his career, and also about this production, which actually opens this week. And guess what? It's already sold out.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, so they've done pretty well. They're like a pop-up theatre thing. We've got Simon Berry in the chat, who's going to see the play on behalf of the Outcasts on Saturday. I should have been going with him, but because I got this script deadline, I'm afraid all hands to the pump. And I was going to go Friday originally. Anyway, without any further ado, let's bring in the man himself, Mr. Larkin. Welcome to the Outcast Creative.
Hello, thanks for having me on. What
Not
wonderful
at all.
introduction.
Well, we'll do our best. Simon says he's looking forward to seeing the play. Now, you'll have to forgive me if I cough. I'm just getting over a horrible chest infection that's been going on forever. So occasionally I may turn off my camera. But to start the interview, before we get into your background and why you decided to seek a career in perpetual poverty as an actor, what we want to cover a few basic questions which we always ask all of our guests. So the first question I ask every guest on the industry interview is, what is the first film you remember as a child being taken to see on the big screen at the cinema?
Wow. Well, before you finished that question, I thought of Crocodile Dundee, because I do remember being around my nan's house once, and I think I watched it 3 times in a row. My brother was just he couldn't understand why I kept wanting to watch it. But
that would have been on VHS. That would have been on video. Do you remember your first big screen experience?
I don't remember the very first one, but I remember one of the early ones being Titanic, which is a bit of a surprise. And I watched that with my mum, actually. I thought it was very good. Yeah, it was a very good film.
I mean, that is the sort of film that your mum would drag a kid to go and see, saying, "This isn't for mummy. I'm taking you to see this. I have no interest in DiCaprio. I'm definitely taking you to see this. It's all for you." What was the last film that you bought a ticket to and paid to go to see at the cinema?
What's the last film I went to go and see at the cinema? Oh, the last film I went to see at the cinema was... Wow, I've been so busy. I can't even remember. What is the last thing I went to see?
Last one for me was Warfare, which was a couple of weeks ago. Inside Man, what was the last one for you?
Unfortunately, it was Gladiator 2.
Yeah. No.
Was it
Try and forget
disappointing?
that. Try and forget about that one.
Yeah.
Did you see Gladiator 2 at the cinema, Tom?
I did not know. I did
So-
see the film about Bob Dylan.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, with Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, that's right. I did see that one.
Okay, so you saw that on the big screen.
That is the last one I saw on the big screen.
Okay, right. Who is next? Quick question, and there's no right or wrong answer on this. Give me a British actor that in your career you would love to do a scene with at some point, man or woman, British actor.
I would like to do a scene with Mark Rylance.
Oh,
Ooh,
superb
good
choice. Superb choice.
Good choice.
American actor or actress?
An American actor. I mean, it'd be pretty cool to do one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
There we go. I will accept that answer. Fantastic. Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie that you watch at least once per year?
I do have a favorite movie but I don't know if I watch it once a year, but I think up there is Green Mile and
Good
also
choice.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, same producer on
anything Stephen King, any Stephen King book.
Since The Sopranos, so I think we're talking 98, was it, Inside Man, that The Sopranos
came
about
out? 98, 99, something like that.
The end of the 90s. So since The Sopranos, Tom, do you have a favorite television show that you had to binge every episode? It was like a benchmark show for you that you also thought, God, I would love to be in something of this kind of standard one day. I'm talking serious TV drama. I'm not talking 30-minute comedy shows. So we're talking about stuff like The Wire, The Shield, these kinds of shows.
The Wire is incredible. The Wire is absolutely incredible. I mean, but to add another one in there, if this counts, I've recently binged White Lotus, the third series, and just thought it was really good again. I just think the writing is fantastic.
Good characters in that.
And the directing across the board, I think it's really great.
Fantastic. If you're a fan of the Wire, but you haven't seen The Shield and you've got an Amazon account, I highly recommend. In fact, myself and the Inside Man would recommend this show to you. Yeah, definitely put this as a to watch. It's a tour de force of acting, and a lot of the actors that were in this show are massive now. So it's all available on Amazon. So if you've got an Amazon account, you can binge it when you're done with your show. So Tom, where did you study drama? Tell us how it all started for you.
I studied drama at the Drama Centre, which has recently closed, and I graduated in 2010.
Right.
But
okay.
I think I always was interested in being an actor. As soon as I realised that it was an actual profession, as soon as I realised that it was an option.
Was there a catalyst for that? Was there a individual?
Yeah, there was.
A teacher or someone? Tell us about that.
I'll tell you what the catalyst was. I remember we had to do at secondary school. We had to think about what you wanted to do for your career, and we had to meet this lady and talk about what we'd want to do for a career. And she got us on to looking through all the different types of careers one could have. And I remember seeing on there actor as an option and thought, I mean, that is it. That's what I want to do. And I hadn't even thought about it at that point. And I remember meeting her in the interview, and she was like, "Oh, it's going to be really difficult. You know, it's going to be, maybe you should choose something else." And I just thought, nah, that phrase alone makes me want to do it more.
Right.
So I've got her to thank. But I had also some fantastic teachers. There's a guy called Rob Flowers used to teach at Adeyfield School in Hemel Hempstead. He now lives further up north, I think near the Peak somewhere.
Do you know what? I think I've had another guest who's mentioned his name.
He studied at Bristol Old Vic, and he was a secondary school teacher, and he was just quite quite a magnanimous character. So yeah, he was, yeah.
I do think someone else on this channel has mentioned that name. That name, Rob Flowers, definitely sticks. I'm sure you're not the first. Okay, so you had a few influential people. You had the chat with the careers teacher, which was awe-inspiring, as we can hear. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's tough. And then, okay, so how did that transition from there to Drama Centre? What would tell us about the journey a bit?
So I've always done amateur dramatics when I was in Hemel Hempstead. They've got a really good amateur dramatic society there, which they've got this amazing theatre. So I was just always doing shows. It was actually primary school where my teacher in 5th year, she said to my parents, you should take him to acting classes because he seems to love this. So that was one of the few extracurricular activities that was kind of my choice rather than one that was given to me. Not that I'm against any of the ones that was given to me.
No.
In case Mum and Dad are watching.
You never know.
Yeah, from there, I was always interested. I always did it through amateur dramatics, and then yeah, when it came to secondary school, it was just like, right, okay, let's get into drama school. That seems to be the way in, or that was the way that was the option that seemed the most obvious for me. And I didn't get through in the first year that I auditioned. I think I was a little bit too cocky. And in the second round, through a year later, the humble Tom Larkin came back, decided that he might listen to what's going on around him. And then, yeah, I got into Drama Centre because a friend of mine recommended it. And
what did you have to do for your audition back then? What was the drill?
They did, so Drama Centre, unlike the other schools at the time, did all of their rounds in one day, if I'm remembering correctly. So you would go in, you'd do your 2 speeches, you had to do 1 classical, 1 modern, and then you would do a couple of workshops with some people. And at some point during the day, they would put a list up on the wall, and then see everyone crowd around this list to see if their names made it through to the next round. And then after that, we carried on doing workshops. We met with the acting teacher, the head of acting. We did a class with the movement teacher. We did a few others, but they were the ones that stick out in my head the most. And then after that, you just wait for your letter. Now I remember getting the phone call. I was working as a labourer for my mate's landscaping company. I remember sat in his truck, opening up this email and just being absolutely over the moon.
Excellent.
Yeah. God, reliving it now.
Well, there we are. How? I mean, so you were at Drama Centre. What was that? 2 years, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
And I mean, what would you say? How long ago was it you left? 2013 would it have been?
2010 I left. 2010.
Right. So, what would you say were the most valuable lessons that you learned whilst being there?
The most valuable lessons were, I think one of the things that really worked for me was using animals and my body to find a way through into characters. So one of the main classes that Drama Centre is sort of renowned for is a movement psychology, which is a mix of Stanislavski's kind of work with another guy called Jaap Malmgren, who brought Larkin in, and some Carl Jung as well. And so the idea is that everything that we do is expressed through our body and through our voice. And the idea is to kind of find out the psychology behind that. And if you can find that, then you can find ways to find these expressions, either internally or through expression. And so a large part of our training was breaking down characters in what kind of archetype are they, and how does that inform the way that they express themselves, because different people will express these things differently. So that was one of the main things really that I thought was really cool.
So when you got out of drama school, did the Drama Centre, it's no longer with us sadly, but what did they do to prepare you for the big bad world outside? Did you get meetings set up with agents? So I assume you had some kind of graduation show that agents are invited to come along and watch, because I've been to so many of them. In fact, I think I've been to a couple of the drama centre. Tell us about that coming to the end. And
so in your third year are all the public shows for the industry to come along to. So you do one big show each term. The second term you do Shakespeare. This is how it was. You do. They're no longer around anymore. But yeah, our second year was always Shakespeare. And in the third term, the directors of our year also had the opportunity to put on their own show or film. So, and then as well as that, the movement psychology class also prepared us we did solo pieces where we would create the entire environment, all the other characters, and bring our own character to the table. But we are the only ones there. So we would literally, with our imaginations, bring all these other characters in. And so for those that did particularly well-polished solo shows, as they were known, they would also show them to the industry folk.
So that must have been a bit brutal, deciding who got to show those and who didn't.
It was a very competitive environment, that's for sure, which you either stepped up to or not.
Are you still in touch with any of your fellow students from that year?
Yeah, not from that year, but from the other years. Actually, I kept in touch with them. I mean, I love my year. They were all fantastic actors, and most of them are still working, as far as I can see. And actually, a few of them are coming along to see the show, which is really lovely. Yeah.
But other than that, you're not friends with them. You just keep them at arm's length. You know, you're friends with people from the other year. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that I've got anything against them. And I'll be clear with that. I think it's just such an intense environment to be in drama school.
Yeah.
I think for some people, and I felt I needed just a bit of space from that environment. And obviously the people that you were there with represent that as well. So I absolutely love them all to bits. But naturally, I just found that I wanted to go and find myself elsewhere.
Once you got into the world and you'd done the end of year show, how did the business start for you?
I started working in a bar.
So the same as everyone else.
Sounds like every other actor, yeah.
I worked in a bar for a bit, and I kind of felt like I left with. Well, I was one of the few that our year was so good that most of them got agents, but there was only two of us that didn't, and I was one of the unfortunate souls that didn't at the time. So I left feeling actually that empowered me in a very big way, because I felt like, okay, whenever I go to these auditions, I did manage to get an agent eventually. I got my own one. But I felt like whenever I go to an audition, I'm not going to concentrate on getting the job. I'm just going to concentrate on doing a really good job. And I think that mind frame came in from the fact that I felt like, well, okay, I didn't get an agent, so let's just kind of go with this with a different tact in our head. And then luckily for me, it was only a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and I landed this big job in America doing Peter Pan.
Wow.
With a company called 360 Entertainment. They had this huge tent, and they projected with 12 very expensive projectors the entirety of. So whenever we flew over London, there'd be London. We'd be flying over London, and when we came into Never Neverland, they had the environment projected around us, and that was just so much fun being in America, and also being in a show like Peter Pan, where it's the ultimate of playfulness. Being a lost boy there, or I played John Darling. But being one of the lost boys when you're out in Neverland was a lot of fun. In fact, I do remember there was one scene where Peter and Wendy are having their argument as the play starts to turn a bit. And
is this the company? Sorry, the 360 Entertainment. Is this the company you're talking about?
Yeah. This. Oh, where you are? Let's have a little look.
360.com.
No, that doesn't look like it to me. I'm not sure that is the one. What does it say on the production side of things?
Well, it looks like they're involved in film production, so perhaps not.
I mean, unless they've sidestepped.
Well, it's entirely possible.
They did lots of theatre. But yeah, with the scene where Peter and Wendy have an argument, we were allowed to kind of riff and do whatever we want. And one day we got onto stage, and I turned to one of the Lost Boys and said, "Should we play hide and seek?" And I vividly remember immediately as we started playing this thinking, oh my God, we've made a really bad, like you could just feel all the eyes were on us as we were playing this really truthful game. It's like putting a cat or an animal on stage. You know, it's really difficult to compete with that because they're so in the moment that you can't help but watch them.
Right.
And
so
yeah,
well, I mean, you were improvising the dialogue slightly.
Well, no, we were in the background. Everyone's supposed to be watching Peter and Wendy have their argument.
Oh, I
But we were in
see.
the background being like, what should we do today? And then
Upstage them is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's well, you know, I mean, that can happen.
There's
Can't
lots of stories from that show. We had a lot of fun. We did have a lot of fun on that show. That was also the show where I discovered that when you've got a microphone on in a big corporate kind of show, you have to be mindful if you've missed your cue to go on stage because your microphone will probably still turn on. So
I think I've found the right company now.
I'm supposed to be on stage before then entering the stage.
I think it's these guys, 360 Entertainment.
That's more like it.
Yeah, and the guy that's one of the key players worked on Starlight Express, The Lion King, Mamma Mia. So I feel this is probably more likely to be one of the people working on the thing that you did. Sounds like it.
Sounds like it.
There's about 5 companies called 360 Entertainment, by the way.
That's really interesting. I'll see if I can find them online and shoot them over.
Simon Berry says Mike Gas are classic.
Oh yeah, I do remember. I just went, shit, I'm supposed to be on stage, and I opened up, came up, and all the cast were looking at me in horror because I just said in a family show over the speakers.
Well, that can happen. So, I mean, what was, apart from the fact that obviously you went and worked behind a bar, what was your first professional job out of drama school?
Well, Pete's Band was probably the most significant first one. I did do another little show at the Arcola, but that was kind of as we were still leaving drama school. So Pete's Band was the first one. And I did that for 9 months. We did Chicago, Atlanta, and Boston.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was really.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been quite a nice baptism of fire.
I didn't know how wonderful I had it. I thought this was it. I thought, this is what actors do now, and this is going to be it. But obviously, every gig is different. It has its own kind of wonders.
What would you have, bearing in mind that that's 9 months, and then when that 9 months is finished, you've then got to look for the next job. Looking back on that experience, what would you have done differently to further push your career that maybe you didn't do?
I was pretty proactive at that point, actually. I don't think I would necessarily have done anything differently at that point. Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's good that you use that phrase, because when we're talking to young actors on here, and you're definitely are in the young category, you know, one of the things that I constantly advise them, and I say this in workshops when I go and teach in drama schools and stuff, is I say you've almost, these days, even if you've got an agent, unless your agent is one of the top 10 or top 20, let's say, and you are of such a pedigree that you don't need to worry personally, you still need to be doing your own shit. You need to be promoting yourself. You need to be networking. You need to be trying to get in with the next generation of directors or independent directors that are proactive and doing their own stuff. I can't strongly advise that to people enough, especially if you're in there are different casting. There's what we call the casting pyramid, and the bottom of that pyramid, which is the largest number of surplus actors in London, is white females between the age of 18 to 30.
Right.
They have to work 5 times as hard as everyone else to get a part, because there's so many of them. There's more white female actresses than any other category of that age group. than any other demographic. Whereas, you know, black male actors 18 to 30, there's a much smaller number of them in London. And most of them will be working a lot. So it's, yeah, you've got to, you know, you've got to push yourself. You've got to be out there. You've got to be proactive. You've got to do that. What kind of things have you done to stay proactive?
Well, doing the Dream of the Ridiculous Man is probably a big one for me at this point. I got to a point with my career where I think I did stop doing some of those things that you mentioned, and realized actually that well, this kind of just hit me, basically, this show, and I decided I have to do it. And it has been quite a wonderful journey going on since then.
Well, let's talk about it. Tell us about the project and how it all came about.
So I saw a version of this by Greg Hicks April last year, with a director friend who invited me along to see it. A lot of sort of things circled round at the point that we decided to go and see this show together. And I remember seeing it and just being so blown away by the raw material of the show. It spoke to me in many ways, and that I thought, I have to do this. I think it's just so wonderful. And so he said, all right, we'll go away and read it and then come back to me and we'll chat about it more. And so I did that. And since then, yeah, we've embarked on this project together.
This is the production from last year.
That's right, at the Marylebone Theatre. That's right.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Greg Hicks. Yeah, I saw Greg Hicks play Macbeth many years ago when I was doing my A levels. Actually,
I've seen Greg on stage at least once. I'm trying to remember what role, because he's that very hard, quite stern face that's very piercing. If you know, if you're in a small space with him and he locks eyes on you, and I nearly always sit on the front row when I go and see Fringe, because I like to put my feet out because I've got long legs. So you know, if there's leg room, I'm going to take it. So and I also like to see the actors' eyes. I like to see the sweat drip off their forehead if it's an intense piece. And I remember when I went to see him, I was sitting on the front trying to remember the piece now. It wasn't this. And he locked eyes with me, and he didn't look away from me for like an uncomfortably long period of time. So I started squirming in my chair. But you know, that's the beauty of theatre, isn't it? Things like that happen. It's very organic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about the play, because not everyone will have heard of it. I kind of gave you a bit of a blurb on the
That's
intro.
right. Yeah, you did. It's about a guy. It's essentially about awakening, really. So the guy is kind of at the end of his tether. He's very nihilistic about his thoughts, which a lot of Dostoevsky's other material is about that, or a lot of his themes that kind of go along around philosophy and nihilism and all those sorts of subjects. And so he's at that point, and on the night he decides to commit suicide, take his life by suicide. That he actually falls asleep, which he's never done before because he's an insomniac, and he has this profound lucid dream that kind of wakens him up to what's in front of him, and so he sees the world completely differently. And I just love that in theatre. I remember seeing Oceans at the End of the Lane and finding that exact thing really wonderful about that character's journey. At the end, he has they do the same scene at the start and at the end of Oceans at the End of the Lane, but this boy's been through such a journey that his relationship with his father and the breakfast routine is completely different. And I really understand that and think that's really cool.
Do you know what? I never saw that show. I saw a photograph of it. I saw the poster. I thought, oh, that's proper good. That looks like a really good play. And it came, I think that was in London around sort of 2017, 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it came back again as well later after COVID.
Right.
I find it absolutely fascinating and amazing that works by Dostoevsky are still so enduring. But still so socially relevant. Yeah, and I found that with this piece as well. It just seems so relevant to today. He really taps into quite universal things. I think he had a really troubled life, and he also had quite
transient and lucid life as well. So
Yeah.
So he taps into a lot of subject matters which I think were prevalent then, but are just as prevalent now.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. So you said, okay, let me talk about a couple of basics first. So you decided you wanted to do this piece. How long ago did you make that decision?
Well, I knew as soon as I saw it in April last year that was what I wanted to do. And it took a couple of months for me to read it and chat to the director before we decided to embark on this. And in the meantime, he'd spoken to a couple of translators known as the Puppeteers, Richard Pavir and Larissa Voloronsky. I might have said that wrong. Apologies if I said that wrong. Who are award-winning translators. They won the PEN Booker Prize twice, and they've devoted a large part of their life as a couple to translate Dostoevsky's work into English. So they've got a very interesting way of doing it. So we read a few different translations of The Dream of a Ridiculous Man. I think Myers was one of them, which was very anglicized. And some of those things were interesting, but we really liked what they had done because they were true to Dostoevsky and his kind of lyrical poetry side of it. So it's trying to make sure that we maintain that whilst also making it theatrical, but also take away some of the Russian, because we wanted it to be as universal as it could be. This play could be anywhere and in any time.
And so from you seeing the show last year to committing mentally, okay, I want to do my version of this, to that becoming a reality, to you finding a venue, presumably pulling together some money, getting a director, a production team, your sound lighting designer, stage manager, all of that stuff. How long did that take?
Well, we spent a large number of months developing the script. So that was probably from around June or July. I think it was end of June we started working on the script. And then we finished that come end of August. And we did a couple of rehearsals in September, invited a couple of people along to sort of have a rehearsed reading of it. Got some ideas from that. And then I went away and did Life of Pi again for a little bit because they offered that over in India. And I couldn't say no to go and do Life of Pi in India. That just sounded magical. And then since come back,
is that the stage production?
Yeah, the stage production, which I was also in 2021. Forgot the year.
What role were you doing in it?
I was one of the puppeteers, so there were 6 of us that were the puppeteers of Richard Parker the tiger, but also all the other animals from the zoo and the story.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a really wonderful experience.
So you went away and did that. You came back
in January, and in January we started rehearsing again, and then we've got on board as the leaflet. We got the design done there. And we were looking at sound. We've got an interesting idea of a sound engineer that we'd like to use for it. But actually, one of the things we really love about this story is the fact that you can just turn up one actor anywhere and do this. So that was what we really interested. So we've kind of made it very old school, not old school, but very sort of like pared down, sustainable theatre.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
What I mean, so for those people watching that don't know the play, it's effectively a one-man show, and sometimes it's quite hard to convince people to come and watch them.
That's right.
Because I'll remember various actress friends of mine saying, "Oh, Britain, I'm writing my one-woman show," and I'd be like, "Oh God, that means I'm going to be getting an invite for this." So then now I have to decide whether I'm actually going to come. And I have to say that I went to see a terrible raft of these that were not very good. And then I think me and my ex-wife went to see one, I think it was around 2015, at that theatre in Clapham that used to be based in North London somewhere, and they kept the name. It was the name was relevant to the postcode. Quite a good theatre company. And Jamie was run by Jamie. Was it Jamie Langland? He's gone up north now, and he's got a theatre in Whitby now. And we went to see a one-woman play there, and it was great. was so captivating. It was so interesting. Because they pushed the envelope. They did more things than just stayed rooted in ranted, and you know, they did different things. They did different things to incorporate the audience. It sort of made the experience really fun, really interesting. And then I saw 2 more after that, and they both kind of were in a similar vein. Are you sort of pushing the envelope in any way different? I don't want you to give anything away, but is there anything like that you're doing?
Well, I think the material is just so interesting that that in terms of what we're doing, I mean, we're just staying really true to the material, and it has so many different levels to it that it's already interesting. So I don't we wanted to pare back all of that. We don't want to sort of show the story. We don't want to show the dream. I think reliving the dream is interesting enough. So that's kind of our take on it.
What do you think a modern audience will get out of coming to watch the show? What's the biggest takeaway you're hoping that they'll have?
There's a very uplifting message at the end of it, and I think people will feel that. I think they will go away with that message, thinking, "Yes, that's what I want." Why wouldn't I want to do that? Why wouldn't I want to be holding the flag of that message? And the character goes through quite a journey. I don't want to give any of it away. I mean, I went to see it not knowing anything about it and was just like blown away by the material. Right. So I'm always a bit reticent to give too much away, but he certainly goes on quite a profound journey, and I think it really shows you all the facets that a human being could be.
I mean, Dostoevsky is very much that style of writer who will put you through as an audience, as a reader, through your paces. I mean, this is really the antithesis of something like Brothers Karamazov, for example.
Oh yeah, a lot of those themes in that book are kind of boiled down into this. Yeah.
So, for the benefit of people watching, it's returns only, because you've actually already sold out your ticket allocation, I believe.
As of today, we'd sold out. Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very delighted. I must admit, when we first put it up 4 weeks ago, I just thought, oh gosh, am I going to be seeing 10 people or 5 people doing this? But yeah, we have sold out, and this is a pilot run. So this is kind of the launch pad for The Ridiculous Man, and it will certainly have another life elsewhere. We have got an open dress on Thursday, which we've been inviting industry folk to. So there is, if there is loads of interest, then we would consider opening another performance. One of
I mean, if people can only make Thursday, and Thursday is an industry performance, it wouldn't hurt for you to have, 5 or 6 members of public sitting there reacting. What's interesting about this is, normally you've got, if you're trying to put on a play fringe theatre, you've got the usual suspects, the Old Red Lion, you've got the one in Hampstead, there's a couple in West London, the one near Barons Court Theatre. I mean, the usual suspects come up, and then there's some that are kind of used as theatres occasionally, but maybe not as rigorously as they were 10 years ago. But you went the other route. You basically did a pop-up. So you've gone to the Master Shipwright's house in Deptford.
Yes.
Which perhaps isn't known as a nub of theatre in London, but it's great that it's happening somewhere different. And it hasn't put people off, because it's already packed. The show's already packed out. What is the space like when you walked in there? What made you think, okay, yeah, this could work here? And how did you go about negotiating that with a venue that hasn't maybe got a tradition of putting on plays?
So we were on the lookout for a venue that had a bit of a dilapidated feel about it in some ways, a sort of a pared back feel about it. And so we were discussing that. And we were also looking for venues that represented something that was an old system that was no longer being used, in order to have the opportunity for something new to be there. which kind of is an echo through the show. And then, on discussions, the director I was working with, Peter, he said he mentioned this place, and I already knew the people who owned it and some of the people who live there, so that it just made sense for us to go for that. And it's a beautiful building. It is really wonderful. So it used to be a place for shipbuilding, where the master of the shipbuilding companies lived there. Peter the Great also was involved there. He came to learn how to build ships there, which we thought was quite an interesting link.
Yeah.
So then I was just, I basically reached out to them and said, can we do that there? They have done some performances there. They've done some pantomimes there, and they often have stuff, other sort of musical and theatrical performances there as well. So it's not completely out of the realms for them to put shows on there. But I had to persuade in order to let myself get in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at where it is, it's right on the front of the Thames, pretty much, next to an area that's currently going through substantial redevelopment, which no doubt will be crammed full of unaffordable housing in the not too distant future, regrettably. But I mean, it's a very interesting place to stage a show. Here we are, just to give that some scale for where this is in London. You're across from the Isle of Dogs, not a million miles away from Greenwich and Cutty Sark, but sort of when people talk about Deptford, they don't normally talk about the bit of Deptford that's perched on the edge of the river, which is here. You've got pop-up art. So, I mean, basically what you've done is you've created a pop-up venue to stage your play, which I think is a really fascinating idea. And I think also for some people, it might be the only way that they can get their play done. I wouldn't want to be finding this venue late at night, but fortunately it's, it's quite late now. So yeah, there's the waterfront, literally.
The water, over the other side of that wall is where the grounds is, essentially.
Yeah, it's behind here, isn't it? Which
behind that gate, yeah, that's right. Which doesn't look like that at the moment.
I swear an episode of The Professionals was filmed around here.
They've had quite a few things filmed there, yeah. It is used for locations a lot.
So the entrance to the space is that door, literally there.
That's right.
That one. So are you gonna, on the day, just are you gonna have like ushers out there? Is there gonna be somebody there?
That's right. There will be ushers on the door there to let people in.
Because it is in a location where people might wander about and go, where the fuck is this place? Which I think is
the excitement of the show.
Well, indeed. I mean, but you do want to make sure. I've done venues of this nature, and I've always gone to the ushers. Right, used to us in here. What you need to do is put some highly visible clothing on and stand out at the end of the alleyway, directing people.
Yeah.
So Keithy is asking about parking.
Yeah, there is some street parking there, but it's not the easiest. It's encouraged to take trains and public transport where possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And also, Keith, you do want your car to be there when you come back. It's quite important. The nearest public transport for this is Deptford Overground, from what I can see.
Yeah, that is one of the better options, unless on the DLR, right?
And that's about 10 minute, maybe a 10-minute walk.
Yeah, about that.
Fairly straightforward walk.
We can get a train from London Bridge as well.
Yeah. So how long is the running time of the show?
It's around 50 to 60 minutes. We've only timed it once, actually. So we need to get a few more versions of that to find out exactly what the timing is.
And what, as an actor, what techniques do you personally find are best? Because you're basically doing, it's a one-man show, so you're basically doing a massive monologue. Do you break that down into sort of beats with headings? Do you break that down into sections with headings? How do you do it? How do you break it down to remember it?
Yeah, that a lot of that work was actually done when we were writing and adapting it for stage. So we did break it down into blocks, into chunks, in terms of this is the section that is this, and we gave it a heading. And it certainly has a 3-act structure to it, a very clear 3-act structure to it, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
And there are some other kind of beings that are involved in the show, and you meet some people along the way. So there's a lot of really interesting characters in it. And I think over time it just kind of it's essentially that thing of just reading the script over and over and over and over again.
Did you try any different, in order to sort of find different things? Would you do, you know, when you do objective work and stuff like that as an actor, would you do any of those reverse against objective, you know, in order to find things maybe that weren't there, playing the whole thing against type, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've run the play with different things in mind, and we have also done exercises depending on where this character is, to kind of go back to his childhood and see what that childhood version of this character would do. There has been lots of other things, without giving it away too much, that we've explored.
Sure. I appreciate that. So what would you say was the biggest challenge for you with this production overall?
What was the biggest challenge with this production?
Yeah, well, what was the thing that pushed you as an actor, maybe?
I think that the biggest challenge of this production is just how I mean, he doesn't stop talking in this show. The guy doesn't stop. I've seen a lot of one-man shows or solo shows, not just one-man shows, but one-women shows, whilst doing some research for this. And this guy doesn't stop talking. So it's really heavy on the text. So it was the biggest challenge really is to find the range in that, and the interest and the tone of voice, and find those changes in order to keep it interesting. Because it's very easy to blend from one section of the play, blend that into the next section of the play. But it's really important to have those distinct changes, because he's in different spaces. Yeah. And so that finding those moments and really like nailing that was probably one of the biggest challenges.
Fantastic. Well, the details of where this show are on are already in the blurb below. If you do want to go and see it, I would suggest going to see the open dress run on Thursday.
I would give me a message through Eventbrite if you're interested to come.
Yeah. Because that's an industry screening, and also we know a lot of people from the industry do watch this channel. So if you are in the industry and you want to check out Tom's performance, go and see it. Then if you can't make it this week, the play is going to have a longer life after this, we think. So it will be on again, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And Tom, you can always come back to the channel. Now you're an official member of the Outcast Creative, and the only requirement of which is to come on here. You're welcome back to come and plug it, or indeed any other show that you're in another time. What's next before we wrap up? What's next for you? I mean, I know you're hoping to take the show further, of course, but what else are you doing? What else are you up to? How else are you staying on people's radar going forward as an actor? Obviously, coming on here, that's a big help.
Yeah. I think I'm quite one-track minded when I work on these sorts of things. So a lot of my focus is this show basically, and I think I quite like to do that. I quite like to just delve fully into something, which does mean when it ends, you do have that moment of like, what's next? But as long as you embrace that as an actor, I think that those moments are just as informative as when you're in a show. On a creative sense as well as an individual sense.
It is. I have said this to more than an actor in my life on more than one occasion. It is quite important, especially when you're doing a play, to constantly remind yourself you're doing what you love, enjoy the process, and don't worry too much about the next job. Because if you're always thinking about the next job, you
you'll
kind of
never
forget to
the
enjoy
moment.
the journey, if that
I've
makes
seen
sense.
it so much, and I think I've learnt that along the way, that actually once I'm in something, I just think, right, well, let's just enjoy this as much as we possibly can, because this is why we do it.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about the next thing, then just you're robbing yourself of the moment.
So would you say that since graduating, that acting as a profession has either met or exceeded your expectations?
I don't think they met or exceeded my expectations. I think that I think it was entirely different to what I thought it was going to be, but no less wonderful, no less interesting, and no less challenging than I thought it was going to be.
In what ways has it been different?
It's been different because how has it been different? I think it was harder than I expected it was going to be. And I think that I have ended up doing a lot of things that I wouldn't have expected to do. Like puppetry seems to be a large part of my performance skills now.
Yeah, you've mentioned it a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm really grateful for. I think it's really a magical thing to do.
Absolutely.
To be part of a team, or part of a team that are all making one thing come to life.
Yeah.
I find that quite fascinating. So yeah.
I think there is this kind of I think we do occasionally see that there is a misconception of an actor's life being very, very easy, and that you are very spoon fed and things are handed to them.
I don't have that misconception. I think people.
Oh no. I think we know that there are people that are under the impression that this is what an actor's life is. That it's
right.
Very, very much handed to them, and they don't really have to put a great deal of effort in. I mean, I've seen and heard that so many times from so many people, and particularly on set. And from people that believe that they can actually be actors as well. They would like to be an actor, but they don't seem to understand that it's graft, and it's grueling graft. It's very, very tough. It's, as Tom had said, incredibly competitive. But I think the way Tom has tackled this, I think you've really sort of gone at the entire profession with with both hands, really grasped it, and really put your all into it. And to be honest with you, I think it's a profession where you reap the rewards, or you reap what you sow. And I think the amount of work and effort, certainly from just such a brief interview that we've had today, knowing how much effort and time and commitment that you've put into your acting itself, I think it's really commendable that you're doing what you're doing. What an incredible achievement that this really is. It really is truly an achievement, and I think you should be incredibly proud of yourself for putting this on. For tackling something, in a one-man show, having that space to yourself. That's quite something. It really is, and hats off to you. I really am. Really, really incredibly, I think it's admirable, truly admirable. I really do.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it has been quite a beast of a show to get involved in. I'm glad I didn't quite know how much of a beast it was when I started.
Well, I think it's always good to do things that push you, and if
yes.
You're in it and you're thinking, oh, well, this is a bit outside my comfort zone. Well, you know what? That's good, because as actors, you've got to do things that are outside your comfort zone, because otherwise you get typecast and your career will shrink pretty quickly.
Yeah, David Banner was excellent at that. At putting himself outside the comfort zone.
Yeah, he was indeed. And I mean, who would have thought, after his music career seemed to be on the wane and not a lot was happening, then boom, suddenly there he is in Labyrinth, kind of stealing the show. So well, look, I think we'll wrap it up there. Tom, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been wonderful.
No, not at all. And for the benefit of people, again, I'm just going to put this information up on screen now so people can snap it with their phones if they wish. These are the details of when and where it's on. Don't forget, a ticket includes a complimentary drink. So, but don't have a massive pint because it's 70 minutes with no interval. You don't want to be that guy on the front row crossing his legs, trying to edge towards the toilets and hope no one will notice. I'm not saying I've done that, but I might have done occasionally. don't be that guy. Fantastic. Okay, so we are going to be back not just tomorrow at 10 o'clock with the Nielsen ratings, where we're going to be doing a special on Disney's new 4-part drama, Suspect, the killing of Jean-Charles Jimenez, which is going to be really interesting. All the panel will have watched it. Fantastic drama series. If you've not seen it, Tom, I highly recommend it. Really tragic subject, of course, but extremely well told, extremely well made. And I learned a few things actually about that whole incident that I didn't know before. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow at 10 o'clock. But before then, tonight at 10:30, so 90 minutes from now, we're going to be covering a particular favourite film of mine from the 1980s. We're going to be going back all the way to 1985, and we're going to be talking about young Sherlock Holmes with actor Nicholas Rowe in the title role. And interestingly enough, I might well be working with Nicholas in the not too distant future, but I don't want to say too much about that at the moment. So, yeah, fantastic. So thank you to our guest, Tom Larkin, for giving up his time. Break a leg with the rest of your rehearsals, mate.
Thank you
and
very much.
Don't worry, if you hit a blank when you're on stage, just take a breath, improvise until you find your thread, and then just carry on. No one will know any different. If they haven't seen the play before, you'll be relatively safe hands. Inside Man, thank you very much for coming on and being my co-host.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
And you're going to be back with me shortly.
I am indeed.
In 90 minutes or so. Fantastic. Not quite enough time for me to watch the movie again, but I have seen it about 20 times, so I think I'll be all right. So that's it from us. So do come back and join us in 90 minutes, where we're going to be